So I'm going to show you guys a little bit of the post-processing that we do to our images. I think I can say that both Lee and I are pretty minimal on what we actually do to our images. We don't do a lot of retouching, and we do very little color correction. So basically we're shooting raw on Nikon cameras, D800s, D7000s, D3Ss, D300Ss, a good variety of cameras, and then we're throwing those raw files into Lightroom. So I'm going to go ahead and just open up some random files here. And so I just have a wide variety of wedding photos, bridal portraits, engagement shots, all kinds of stuff in here. So I'm going to go to the develop setting. Now, one thing that really drove me crazy when I started shooting raw was I could never get my images to look the way that Nikon software processed their raw files into JPEG format. So the only real way to get that to look 100% accurate is to use Nikon software. If you use Canon, I'm sure it's probably the same way. But Lightroom now has a really good way of emulating the processing that Nikon does, and at this point I'm pretty happy with the results that I'm getting. So I'm going to show you guys exactly what I do to tweak my images and design a preset that I can then batch out to every single image throughout a wedding. And by using just a few tweaks to make this preset, I can make my raw images look just like the vivid setting that's inside my Nikon cameras. So I'm just going to go down to camera calibration, and I'm going to set this to camera vivid, which is Adobe's emulation of Nikon's vivid setting. So I'm going to click that, and you can instantly see that it bumps a lot of the colors up. It gives me a nice contrast, and it's a pretty good starting point to start processing my images. Another thing that I really like that Nikon does is they kind of have a shadow highlight built into their JPEG processor. And what I found to get that similar effect is to go to the shadows and just pull the shadows up just a little bit. And then usually what I do is I bring the blacks down and crush them just slightly. So I'm making the black point just a little darker, but I'm also bringing the mid shadows up just a little bit. From there, I also like to increase the vibrance, so maybe I bring the vibrance up to about 20%. And what vibrance is doing is it's allowing the colors that are a little less saturated to become more saturated without actually blowing out. So if I was to slide the saturation slider over, you can see that the red tones really start to get oversaturated, the greens start to saturate even more. But with the vibrance setting, it's actually going to bring her skin tones up slightly because they're a little muted in this photo, and it's going to bring out any other colors that are just kind of underrepresented. So I really like the vibrance slider, maybe around 20%. So after I've adjusted the shadows and the black points and the vibrance, the other thing that I do consistently is I just go to detail and I just up the sharpening just a little bit. I don't really have a strict number here, maybe 50% with a small radius. And then when I zoom in, I can just make sure that my images are nice and sharp. So once I've done these basic settings, I will just hit Shift and select the entire wedding. So if I had 1,500 pictures or 3,000 pictures, I would select all of them. And then I would just hit Sync. And then I would check None over here, and I would only highlight the items that I just changed. So I changed under Basic Tone, the shadows, the black clipping. I also changed the sharpening. Under color, I did vibrance and processing and calibration. So I'm not even checking all of these. I'm just checking those few little things that I tweaked, and then I hit synchronize. And then that is going to batch every single file to those exact settings without changing the white balance, without changing the highlights. It just gives me a basic starting point so that the images look pretty similar to the way they looked on the back of my Nikon cameras when I originally shot the files out there at the wedding. So now I'm just going to go through a couple of these images and show you just a few other little things that I like to do to make my images look really good before I process them out of Lightroom. So we can just look at a few pictures here. So in this example, this looks pretty good. I'm going to show you what it looked like on the import. You can just see it's kind of bland. There's not a lot of contrast. The colors are really muted, and ultimately I just really can't stand the way that the Adobe standard setting looks when you import files in. So using the preset that I just made, it just really bumps the color. And then from here you can of course tweak anything that you want. One interesting thing that you can do in this example is you can actually go down to a color and then select maybe blue, and then you can bring the saturation up on the blue. So if you have nice blue skies and you really want to accentuate those, you can do all of that with the color setting. I may do this for really important shots like bridal shots or pose pictures and then batch all of those out. But, you know, a lot of typical images throughout a wedding, I'm not going through and really editing them much more than the initial import. So here's just another one. You can see the before and after. It just kind of gives it a nice pop. I may not even do anything extra to this image. Here's just a shot that I took on location at the wedding, and you can see the guy's jacket's just starting to get a little dark. So in this case, for these pose pictures, I might actually pull the black points up just a little bit. You can also bring the shadows up just a little bit, but you can see it's kind of giving that HDR look throughout the entire photograph, and a lot of times I don't really like that. So I'm going to pull the shadows back down and just kind of bring the black point up just a little bit so you can still see detail in his suit. This is another great example where you could come in and just kind of saturate the blue sky just a little bit, but ultimately I kind of like the way it was imported initially. This setting works really well for indoor shots, so of course this is a reception photo with bounce flash into a white tint. I think this image is pretty perfect. I might just bump the exposure up just slightly, but pretty much straight out of the camera. I mean, that's the beauty of getting everything right when you shoot it, is that hopefully you don't have to make a whole lot of adjustments in Lightroom. At least I don't like to play with Lightroom all that much. Here's an example of a photo where maybe it was just a little dark and I underexposed just slightly, so maybe here I would pull the exposure up. And I also think, you know, some of the red tones are just a little too strong. So what you can actually do is go down to your color and then go to red and just play with the saturation a little bit. So if you find that the skin tones are just a little too red, you can pull down the red slider. Sometimes skin tones are actually found in the orange section. So reducing the orange might just actually give the skin tones just a little better look. And then here maybe I pull the blacks out just a little bit and maybe bump the contrast up just a little. So you can really see the versatility of shooting RAW. For the longest time I shot JPEG, and I just try to get the images as good as possible because I hated going through all of these settings trying to make this initial import look anything like the images on the back of the camera. I'm not going to go through all of these examples, but you can just see here, you know, just a few little tweaks, and I mean, I feel like that image right there is pretty much close to being deliverable. Here's an example of a departure shot that I did where I was using off-camera lighting. I think I had a big alien bee lighting this, and the refresh rates were just kind of slow, and my favorite shot actually was underexposed because I was shooting a little too quickly. So in this example, you can really see how just bringing up the exposure can really save an image that normally would have gotten deleted. Here you can kind of play with the highlights too because it's outside and just give it that really bright look. So again, you can see from the import, just really dull, underexposed, no pop, no contrast, and then just using just a few slight tweaks, I can get an image that just looks really nice. Another trick that you can do in Lightroom that's really cool is you can paint onto your subjects. So you're actually painting on top of a raw file. So if I go to the adjustment brush here, I can actually set this so that the shadows are a little bit lighter because the shadows on everybody's tuxes are just a little too dark. I can go in here and just kind of paint on an effect. Let's set the white balance back to what it should be. So you can see all I've done is just added a brush stroke that's just bringing back some of the shadows in the guy's suits, and I'm not affecting the shadows anywhere else in the photograph. So this is a little bit more difficult to do. You probably need to do this on a per image basis because you cannot easily batch out brush strokes unless your camera was on a tripod. But if you only have a few images that are just perfect, but you just want to pull out the slightest little bit of shadow, I do sometimes use the adjustment brush tool to do that as well. Another tool that I really like is this crop tool here. Sometimes with pose pictures you might get a little sloppy and not get the horizon just perfect. So you can easily just readjust the frame pretty quickly. Here's another great example of just another image that's kind of bland when you import it into the standard Adobe ACR RAW conversion. But when I apply my vivid settings and just a few tweaks, it really just gives it the pop and pretty much produces an image that I'm completely happy with. I don't need to tweak that all that much. Same goes here. You can see just no contrast at all. The colors look really strange to me. But when I add my preset to it, it just gives a really nice setting. The vibrance slider, it really works really well on outside shots. So you can see here, if I didn't do any vibrance at all, the image looks good because I've added the vivid setting. But outside, I can really move this vibrance slider quite a bit, and it just really brings all the foliage up. It gives all the greens a nice pop. It brings the yellows up just a little bit, but the skin tones are still staying pretty acceptable. So I use the vibrance setting quite a bit just for outdoor shots. I might bump them up slightly, but usually, you know, even just around 25% is pretty good for me. Here's an example where I was shooting the couple right after the ceremony and it began to rain. You can see that there's these out of focus raindrops in the background. And because it was raining, I was working a little bit quicker than normal, and I actually chose a white balance that might have been a little more warm than what I typically would have picked if I had a little more time to think about it. So shooting raw, I can just pull the white balance slider down a little bit and give a more natural look. And here I can also tweak the blacks just a little more, so maybe give the image just a little bit more punch. And then sometimes I play with the highlight slider, so you can retrieve highlights. I kind of like this blown out highlight look. But in situations like this where I shot maybe 5 minutes and took 20 pictures that are very similar, I can go back and just tweak the colors just slightly and produce an image that would be better than if I just shot this in RAW. Here's a group pose picture shot where I just might have exposed just a little too warm. So I can bring the exposure down just a little bit and then tweak the white balance just slightly. And maybe even add a little more green into this photo. And so in this example, I'm not making that many changes, but I did shoot the white balance a little too warm when I shot it out on the field. So you can see the import looks absolutely horrible, and then adding my tweak, I was able to get the colors to pop just a little bit, and then just playing with the white balance just slightly, I was able to get it into a more normal color range. Here's just an example of shots outside, on the beach, very overcast day. Just playing with the black sliders, and the vivid just kind of brings the pop back. And another cool little thing that I can show you guys here is the adjustment brush. I can go back and I can do several things here. I can turn the exposure down a little bit, and I can actually paint over areas that are just not that important. So if you get that perfect bridal shot and you just want to make it pop a little bit more, you can actually add some strokes on top of this and really underexpose the background just a little. I mean, you can see extreme. That's kind of what I did. But I can just bring it down just slightly, and it just really brings the attention to the couple, especially in natural lit shots where the lighting is completely even over the frame. I can also change the white balance in areas too, so I'm going to turn the brush down just a little bit, and I'm actually going to paint the couple just slightly and fix the exposure on them. Bring some highlights back. And you can see I can turn the white balance up and down on just the couple, which is a really cool feature. So if you're working with mixed lighting, or maybe you've gelled one of your strobes and it's not quite the color that you want, you can actually paint over different sections in Lightroom and change the white balance directly. Again, I don't do a lot of this, but it is a nice little tool to have, especially when you get that perfect engagement shot or that perfect photograph of the couple out on location, and you really want to make it look as nice as possible. So I hope that what you guys can take from this is that there are so many options that you can do with post-processing and making your photos have a specific look to them. Lee and I really kind of have branded our whole photography business with a vivid, very standard looking process. But you could do really anything with this. I mean, you could take a photo like this and decide that you want very little contrast, and you want it to kind of have a softer look. Maybe you want it to have even more contrast and you want to bump the contrast up on all of your photos. It's really up to you. So this is one thing to consider early on in your career. Figure out a type of processing that you like, and you can just go crazy with it. You can do the Polaroid looks, you can do the Instagram looks, you can do things that are slightly black and white. Really, the options are completely limitless.
It's now time to talk about wedding photo booths. And if you've been to a wedding in the last few years, chances are you've probably seen some sort of wedding photo booth set up at the reception at one of these weddings. In the past, it was really popular to bring an actual carnival-style photo booth to the reception, and that's an actual booth, and 1 or 2 people can fit inside, and it counts down, and then it takes 5 pictures in a row and prints out a little film strip. Now, if you wanted, you could go out and buy one of these actual photo booths and start adding that to your packages, but I find that, one, that's extremely expensive. It's also incredibly difficult to travel with because it's this booth. You're going to actually have to buy a truck and cart it around, which is a big pain. But there's also a lot of other problems involved. One, it doesn't take very good pictures, the lighting's bad, the quality's bad, the prints that come out of it are really bad, and the big one for me is it can only involve 2 or 3 people max. It's a very small enclosed thing, and if you could take the same idea of a photo booth but then open it up and allow huge groups of people to be involved, it's going to be a heck of a lot more fun. So when you're first starting out, you may not have a lot of extra gear, and that's okay because you can create a very simple photo booth with the gear that you already have. Let's say right off the bat, you start off with a relatively cheap camera and a tripod. The only thing that you really have to add to this is some sort of remote control. And both Nikon and Canon have these little IR remote controls. I think these things are 15 or 20 bucks each, and these will help fire the lower end level cameras. So if you've got a D600 or cheaper with Nikon, or you've got a 7D or cheaper with Canon, you can buy this little IR sensor, you can point it right at the camera, and it will take a picture of you. So don't think that you have to go out and spend tons of money to start a photo booth. You pretty much got a photo booth right there. So now that you've got a remote control and you've got a camera on a tripod, we need to come up with some sort of lighting. Obviously, the easiest type of lighting is just going to be a camera with a flash on it. But hopefully over the course of this entire video, you've learned that direct flash usually looks pretty bad. So you could just angle the flash off to the side and you could get nice bounce light from a wall. Or you could take that flash off camera, put it up on a light stand so it's getting a little bit more directional and you can get nice, edgy, harsh light. It looks really cool when it comes to something like a photo booth. You can set your photo booth up in a very interesting location at the reception. Maybe you set it up with a view in the background so there's no wall at all, or maybe you find an area that's a nice flat painted wall, or maybe you find a brick wall. When you're trying to figure out where to set up your photo booth and you don't have any sort of background that you're bringing with you, keep in mind that backgrounds are important, but in many cases when it comes to these pictures, simple might be better. Just finding a flat wall with one color paint may be the best option. So now that you've got a camera on a tripod, you've got some sort of lighting, and you've got this little remote control here, you're going to be able to set it up and have your guests take pictures. Now, they're going to be able to take a picture of themselves, but they're not going to have any idea what their picture looks like unless they walk around to the back of the camera and they actually see what the camera took. And honestly, when I first got started with my career, that's what my photo booth was. It was just a simple setup like this. You took a picture, you'd have to walk around, look at the little bitty screen and go, oh, it looks good, or oh, we need to redo it. And it worked fine at the beginning of my career. But as I got better as a photographer and I got more equipment, I added to my photo booth and made it a much more exciting thing. So the next thing that you should do to take your photo booth to the next level is give the guest a way to actually see the pictures easily and on some sort of large screen. So I use a projector and an iPad. The projector is probably a little bit more complicated of a solution. So let's start with the iPad. By using an iFi card in your camera, you can actually take pictures with a DSLR and wirelessly send them over to an iPad. I know many photographers already own iPads, and we showed you in an earlier chapter how we use iPads when we meet with clients. So I think iPads are a great investment because you can use them for multiple things with your photography career, and of course they're a write-off, which is great. If you go on google.com and type in how to tether a DSLR to an iPad, you're going to find 2 videos by me, and I'm going to teach you one, how to tether your iPad by jailbreaking the iPad, and then there's going to be a new video that teaches you how to tether your iPad to a DSLR without jailbreaking the iPad. Depending on how tech savvy you are and how much you like tinkering with this stuff, you may want to go with the jailbreak method. But if you want to keep things as simple as possible, do the second, newer method and tether it without jailbreaking the iPad. So now you've got yourself a pretty good photo booth. You've got a camera on a tripod, you've got a remote, and you've got some sort of external lighting, and then when people take a picture, it is wirelessly sending that picture to an iPad. So your guests are going to be able to pick up this iPad, they're gonna be able to scroll around and look at old pictures, they're gonna be able to walk around and show people, oh my gosh, look at this picture we just took, you gotta come take your own picture, and best of all, they're going to be able to email themselves directly from your event. And this is fantastic because at this point, you're going to be able to capture their email addresses, and if you want to, after the event, after everything's online, you can send these people an email and say, hey guys, here's all the wedding photo booth pictures if you want to see them, and I can guarantee they do want to see them. Or here's the rest of the pictures from the wedding. Here's the wedding slideshow. So this is a huge moneymaker for my business, and I think it's something very important that you guys need to think about when you're starting your wedding photography business as well. If you don't have an iPad or you don't have the money for an iPad, you could just bring a monitor. All you have to do is have a monitor, you can put it on the ground or maybe put it up on some table next to the camera and then plug in an HDMI cord or some sort of RCA jack into the side of the camera that goes directly into the monitor, and as soon as you snap the picture, it's going to show up on the monitor. Really simple. So over the last 8 years, I've been perfecting my photo booth, and I feel like I've come up with something that is extremely fun. It takes fantastic pictures, it gets everybody involved at the venue, and honestly, we probably get more emails directed at F-stoppers asking me how I make my photo booth than anything else. And I've kind of been hesitant to release it for a while because I felt like this is kind of my thing that I came up with, and I didn't want there to be 800 other photo booths that were the exact same as mine. But I'm going to explain to you exactly how I set it up right now. But afterwards, I'm going to try to convince you why you don't want to copy my photo booth and why you should come up with your own creative style. So now I'm going to show you a time lapse of me setting up my entire photo booth. The first thing that I'm going to bring out is a Lastolite highlight. Basically, this thing is a huge 3-dimensional softbox that you can put lights in and fire light from the inside or behind it, and it's going to create a perfectly white background. As you can see, this thing folds up into an incredibly small package. It just flips out like any other reflector, and then it has these little sticks that you put around the side, and that's what keeps it rigid. When I first bought this thing, I would bring background stands to my wedding so that I could lift it up off the ground so that I wouldn't cut people's heads off in the photo booth. And it was kind of a pain to bring 2 extra stands and that crossbar to go across the top. And I recently found that it was a lot easier just to use chairs. Every single reception site has extra chairs lying around, and so I usually just ask the planner if I can use 2 extra chairs. In this example, I don't have any chairs. I'm just going to use these really small ottomans to get this thing up off the ground a little bit. So now I'm going to add the first light, and it is a ProPhoto D1, the same lights that I used earlier in this video to light up the church I'm going to use for the photo booth. And I like to use a reflector dish inside of the Lastolite highlight so that I'm not getting any sort of harsh spill right on the edge where the light goes in. I want the light to be more directed towards the center of the Lastolite so that it lights up the whole box evenly. It is much easier to evenly light it with 2 flashes, but I think just for the sake of setting this thing up, I would much rather do it with 1. For this example, I'm compressing everything a little bit because I want you to be able to see everything, but basically the screen to the camera is usually about 12 to 13 feet. So pretty much the only positive aspect to these little IR remotes is that they're cheap and you can get them anywhere. But you're going to have your subjects pointing these things right at the camera. It has to be line of sight, so this is going to show up in the picture every single time, and I find that it's not very reliable. So the next best option is going to be to use a pocket wizard to trigger your camera. You're going to have trouble triggering a camera with a pocket wizard if it's a lower end model. You're going to need the semi-pro to pro level DSLRs that have specific jacks in the front of the camera that allow them to be controlled with Pocket Wizard. So you can see with this pre-release trigger cable, on one side it has a 10-pin adapter that screws directly into the camera body, and on the other side it has a 1/8 inch headphone jack that goes directly into a Pocket Wizard. The reason that I like using Pocket Wizards to trigger my cameras rather than these little cheapo remotes is that they're reliable. I don't want people having to point this thing at the camera every time and coming to me every 5 minutes asking, is this thing working, is it broken? The Pocket Wizard is going to fire the camera every single time, no matter if it's out here or it's behind somebody's back, or if somebody wants to step off to the side and take pictures out of frame. So let's talk a little bit about this camera that I'm going to be using. This is a D300S by Nikon, and it has a 10-pin connector in the front. And what this allows me to do is use the Pocket Wizards instead of the IR remote to trigger my camera. This is great because now people don't actually have to point this little remote at the camera. They can keep it behind their back, or somebody else who's out of the frame can use the Pocket Wizard to take pictures every single time. Like I said earlier, I love using the iPad, so I'm going to put an iFi card in the camera, and this is going to be taking pictures and then wirelessly sending every single picture to an iPad. If you're having a little bit of trouble with transfer speeds, I would suggest this. Use 2 cards, send RAW files to your main card, but then to your iFi card, send low-res small JPEGs. That's going to send a big enough file that people can still email it to themselves, they can still put it on Facebook, and it's going to be plenty big, but it's small enough that they can send over in about 3 seconds. So when I was thinking about ways to display the images that were being taken at my photo booth, I wanted to do something that was really unique and that was going to get a lot of people involved. So as I said earlier, I do use the iPad system. You can see all of the pictures that are being taken and go back and email yourself the pictures and everything like that. But I also set up a projector that projects the image life-size onto the screen right behind the subjects as they're taking pictures. And the reason that this works so well is that everybody at the reception can see these pictures being taken. So you have a subject jump in there, they hit the button on the Pocket Wizard, they take a picture, they jump off to the side and look behind them. And when they look behind them, they can see themselves life-size on the white screen. Obviously, using a projector is not going to work in every situation with every photo booth unless you have a white screen. You can imagine if you were shooting up against a brick wall or something, you can't project an image on a brick wall. You're not going to be able to see it. So with my white screen and the projector, I think that I have kind of the best of both worlds, because you can take these really unique looking studio-esque pictures on pure white. Most people will never get the chance to have pictures of this high quality of themselves. But then they can also see the pictures on the iPad just a few seconds later, and they can go backwards and see older shots and email themselves. So it's kind of a little bit of everything. My photo booth is so much more fun than the average normal photo booth, because a photo booth just involves the couple of people that are in the photo booth. But my photo booth involves everybody in the entire venue. If you have an older couple that's sitting down and maybe they feel a little uncomfortable going to a normal photo booth, or they don't want to get on the dance floor and dance, after a while of seeing everybody having so much fun and seeing one picture projected after another, I can guarantee you they're going to get up and have a blast themselves. So the way I hook up the projector is really simple. I just open up the side of the camera and either plug in an HDMI jack or an RCA cord directly from the camera down to the projector. So now let's talk about the key light. I'm going to use another ProPhoto D1. And this time I want to use a little bit softer light, so I'm not going to use any sort of reflector dish. Instead, I'm just going to use either an umbrella or some sort of soft lighter or a softbox. Here I've got a Creative Light umbrella with a diffuser panel on the front, and I'm going to get this up to a nice height to create flattering light on my subjects. The reason that I like using the ProPhoto D1s is that they have receivers built in. I don't have to have a Pocket Wizard for every single light. So now I can just put the Air remote on top of my camera. Both of the receivers are built into the mono lights, and I can just flip them on and it will start triggering the lights every time the camera takes a picture. So here are some things that you need to consider no matter what type of photo booth you end up coming up with. One of them is going to be depth of field. Usually your subjects are going to be walking close to the camera and then walking back, and you can set up a photo booth to autofocus with every single picture. I've found that that doesn't work very well. And so instead what I do is I back up a good bit and then ramp up my f-stop so that I get a very small f-stop that allows me to have a very deep depth of field. In most cases I'm shooting around f14, and that gives my subjects a lot of room to play. So if they move forward a bunch or they move all the way back to the screen, they're still going to remain sharp. Because I like shooting with so much depth of field, keep in mind that you probably need a pretty powerful strobe that's going to light your subjects. A speed light by itself may struggle after a little while keeping up with something like f14. Now when it comes to actually setting the power on my lights, I usually start with the background light first. What I'm going to do is set my camera to f14 around ISO 400 at 2/50th of a second, and I'm going to set my flash to level 8. I'm just going to do a test here. I'm going to take a test shot of the pure white screen, and what I want it to be is just barely pure white. So if it's all blinking, it's telling me that my whole screen is pure white, then I'm going to lower the power on my flash. By the time I can see just the littlest hint of detail in the screen, that's where I want to stop. When I finally turn on my key light, it's going to push it over the edge and my background will then go totally pure white. If my background light is too bright, yes, I'm still going to have a pure white background, but what it's going to do is it's going to flare the lens, it's going to make your subjects look really washed out, and the picture overall is just going to look cheap. So it's very important that you get everything dialed in perfectly to get the best image possible. My photo booth has been a huge success for me over the last few years. In fact, I've actually booked some pretty big weddings outside of the state simply because of my photo booth, because I have people that show up to other weddings and when they see this thing in action, they all tell me the same thing. Oh my gosh, this is so much fun. This is so much better than a normal photo booth. I've never seen anything like this before. We've got to hire you, or we're gonna tell our friends about you. And so I've flown to New York, I've flown to DC, I've flown to California, simply because my photo booth is so unique and so different. Now for my photo booth, if you're hiring me as your wedding photographer, I charge you $900 to set it up. And just like all my other photography, you're going to get the high resolution images after the event in color and in black and white, and you can do whatever you want with those pictures. So you can imagine if you're shooting 30 weddings a year and you have the photo booth for every single wedding, you're almost making an additional $30,000 just because you have something like this to offer. I also get booked occasionally just for my photo booth. So I'll show up to parties that don't really need a photographer. I'll show up to weddings where they already have a wedding photographer booked, but they want my photo booth, or I'll send an assistant to go do it. I show up for Halloween parties, I show up for bar mitzvahs. So my photo booth has been really helpful to me in terms of making money throughout the week and throughout the entire year, even when I'm not shooting weddings. Now I know what you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, that is a really good idea. I'm totally gonna rip that off and I'm gonna start offering that with my weddings. And I'm going to try to convince you not to do that. And here's the reason. I truly believe that it is a good idea, but I believe that the reason that I've been so successful with my photo booth is not because the photo booth is a good idea, but because it's an original idea. At this point, I have had a lot of people copy it, and there are people in different states and different countries doing my photo booth because they've actually seen me set it up and then they've taken pictures and they've copied it. But for the most part, most of my clients have never seen anything like it before. And so they don't have anything to compare it to. And if you can create a unique product, you can charge whatever you want for it. So imagine this. Let's say this video comes out, a few hundred, a few thousand people watch this video, and let's just say 1,000 people copy my photo booth. I charge about $1,000 to set this thing up, but let's say somebody in my area copies it exactly and they are willing to set it up for $300. Is there any way that I'm going to be able to convince my client that my photo booth is worth $900 or $1,000 and theirs is actually worse? The truth is it's not any worse, but if my photo booth is a little bit different, or if your photo booth is a little bit different, you can always make that argument. So that's why I think it's so important that you come up with some unique twist to your photo booth. And I've seen some super creative photo booths out there. I've seen wedding photographers that bring some sort of really crazy red couch with them to every wedding, and people lay and sit all over this couch, and that's their photo booth. I've seen people bring other crazy types of backgrounds, or I've seen different interesting types of lighting. Maybe you use a ring light, maybe you use kicker lights behind people, but you can create your own unique style that when people see it, they go, oh my gosh, I know that's whoever you are. And they think about you the next time a photo booth comes up or the next time it's time to book a wedding photographer. If you copy me, you're going to be the same as everybody else that copies me. And then you have to compete with everybody else who has the exact same product. There's a couple disadvantages to my photo booth, one of them being that it's really big and it's not a very elegant looking thing. So I shoot weddings all the time that are pretty upscale, and then I have this ugly Lasto light highlight in the side of the room, and I know it's kind of an eyesore. So that's a negative. The other negative is that it doesn't print anything out at the actual event. And I have a lot of clients coming to me asking, well, can I print the pictures out right then because I want to make some sort of guest book that they can sign their name next to? And I have to tell them, no, I'm sorry, my photo booth doesn't do that. So you can come up with something that's even better than mine. Maybe you can come up with something that looks a little bit more beautiful in a room. Maybe you can add printing to it. Maybe you can completely change the lighting or change the background. There's endless ways to make your own unique photo booth. But at the end of the day, I believe a photo booth is something that every wedding photographer should have as an available option in their packages, because you already have this camera gear. You don't have to go out and spend all this money on this big equipment like I have. All you have to have is a camera, a tripod, and a little bitty remote. That's not a very big investment. So get creative, come up with something. I guarantee that you can come up with something unique to you that you've come up with, and when people see your photo booth and they actually have fun in it, they're going to say, man, this is an incredible idea. I can't wait to hire this person when I need a wedding photographer. I think probably the most important thing I do to book more clients in the future is create video slideshows for every single wedding that I shoot. In the past, I used to charge extra for it because I thought that it was a little bit extra work, and if the clients wanted me to do that, then they should pay for it. But I've realized that it's actually more beneficial to me than it is to them. And so at this point, I include an online video slideshow with every single wedding that I shoot. But if they want to buy a hard copy DVD of it, then it's an additional $150. That easily pays for all of the software for the year to create video slideshows. But even if I didn't sell a single hard copy DVD, it doesn't matter. I need to create slideshows with every single wedding I shoot because my clients love them so much that they share them with so many people, and therefore it books me so many jobs in the future. So I've used a lot of different slideshow creation software, and in the past there were always problems, like it was really expensive, or they were really difficult to use, they were really complicated, or they took forever to create slideshows. And I recently came across Animoto.com, and I feel like they've kind of made everything better. It's very reasonably priced. I think the pro level account's $250 per year, which is totally worth it for what you get. It's web-based, so you don't have to have any software on your computer. This means that you can create slideshows from anywhere in the world on any computer, just so long as you have internet. And you can also include video clips in these slideshows, which is huge because now I can incorporate small video clips with my still images to create slideshows that clients have never really seen before. And everybody is just blown away when they see these videos that I can produce in less than an hour. The reason these slideshows are just so important is because you can take a bunch of pictures, thousands of pictures, narrow them down to the absolute best work from the entire wedding, and take those pictures and turn them into an emotional experience. And if you've seen, I did a video for Animoto where I talk about this, but I joke that if I can make someone cry by watching one of my slideshows and they're looking for a wedding photographer, then I feel like I've already booked the job, because that type of emotion welling up inside somebody is gonna make them say, oh man, I want them to make me feel like that about my wedding. And you could never do that by just sending a link out with 1,000 pictures on it and having people click through them one by one. That's not an emotional experience. You need to take your best work, put it to really awesome, inspirational sounding music, include video clips to make it a little bit more real, and you can create something that people are really blown away with when they see it. So what I'm going to do now is take you on my computer and show you just how easy it is to create one of these slideshows. Alright guys, so quickly I'm going to show you how easy it is to create a slideshow with Animoto. Right here I've got a folder with some of my favorite images from a wedding that I shot last year, and also in the exact same folder I have video clips. So you can see these clips are unedited, but they have small sections to them that are good. And the awesome thing about Animoto is you can actually edit the video on the website itself. You don't have to know how to use editing software, which is fantastic. Now keep in mind, you don't want to shoot really long clips because Animoto cannot accept huge files. So I would definitely suggest keeping your video files below 30 seconds each, and then you won't have any trouble at all uploading them. So first we'll go to Animoto.com. And the great thing about this is it's completely web-based. So I'm already logged in, and I'll click on create a video. And I'm just going to do Animoto Original. These are all the different themes that they have here, so you can get completely different looks. And if you want to create one Animoto Original and then change it afterwards to another theme, you can do that as well. So we'll go ahead and click this and create video. Add pictures and video. Upload pictures and video, and I'm just gonna copy this. Now I'm just going to hit Control A to select all and open. Now all of the pictures and videos are currently uploading. And this might take a little bit of time depending on how big your files are and how many you have. And just in case you are wondering, I usually choose between 100 and 120 images per wedding slideshow. A lot of what will determine how many pictures you need is the length of the song that you're going to use. And so you'll probably find a few songs that you like a lot and you'll stick with those songs. And so I just know if I'm going to use my favorite 5-minute song, then I probably need about 130 pictures. If I'm going to use my favorite 3-minute song, then I need closer to 100 images. So keep that in mind. It's something that you're going to have to figure out for yourself, but after a couple of tries, it won't be hard to figure out. So I would suggest once all of this starts uploading, just go work on something else. You could work on editing the pictures, you could work on putting them up on SmugMug, you could just take a little break at this point because it's probably going to take 20 minutes to upload this entire project. Okay guys, so we are back now and everything has been uploaded, and this is actually the completed project after I've worked on it. And what I'm going to do is show you exactly what I did to get it to where I'm happy with it. The first picture that I always upload is a picture of my logo. So the slideshow will begin with my logo. Then I enter some text documents here. So you can see the header is R.L. Morris Weddings and then text photography by R.Lee Morris. Then I usually do a couple pictures or video clips, and then I'll do the bride and groom's name, and then Charleston, South Carolina, that's where they got married. So if you want to add text like this, it's really easy. All you have to do is hit add text, and it's going to give you these little boxes here. This is a text box, and I'll just hit save. And you see it creates a thumbnail here, and then I can easily just drag and drop and move this around. So if I wanted this to be first, I would just put it first. Really just that easy. Now if I want to delete this, I'm just going to come click on the delete button over here. Now let's look at the videos, because a lot of people think that editing video is really scary, and it can be pretty complicated if you're using software like Premiere, but when it comes to Animoto, it's really easy. So I double click on it, it opens the video clip here. Now you'll notice here that you can change the clip length, and I would suggest keeping your clips below 6 seconds. This is a very short clip anyway, but watch this. I can change the length of it. We'll make it 1 second just so you can see, and I can hit play and watch that 1 second, see how quick that went. And then I can change it to 4 seconds. This is how I ended up using it. They just kiss with the sunset in the background, cool shot. And then you can also move this around. This is where it begins. So you can see my camera guy, I didn't do this, my camera guy is shaking quite a bit at the beginning, so I moved it to the end. It's a little bit better of a shot there. Kind of like the movement with the sun. And save, just that easy. Next I have a picture here, and if you double click you can see everything big. But keep in mind that these should be your favorite images at this point. You don't need to be picking and choosing images. These should be the best work for the slideshow so that you're not deleting pictures once they get in here. You don't want to waste time uploading things you're going to delete anyway. Basically, what you need to be working on is getting everything in an order that you like and then editing your video clips. So let's take a look at this video clip. I think this is a shot. Yeah. So this clip here is a shot of the girls getting ready, and it is a pretty long clip. I think this clip might be 20-30 seconds. The longest the clip can possibly be once it's edited in Animoto is 10 seconds long. I wouldn't suggest even doing that because people start to get bored. I have it set to around 3 seconds. So watch this. If I click play, this is the 3 seconds that's going to show up in the slideshow. It's just a quick little slider shot of the bride getting her hair done. If I wanted it to be longer, I could make it 5 seconds. We'll do it again. You see it's a little bit longer now, but I'm going to keep it short at 3 seconds. So you can go down the list and you can click on all the videos and make sure that they look good and they're at the peak of action. And after I've edited all the videos and I know that everything's in order, notice here I've also got photo booth pictures in here. Once you've got everything in a correct order and you've got all your videos edited, I usually add one more bit of text at the end. You could also add a picture of your logo again if you wanted. Mine just says R.L. Morris Weddings, and then below that it's going to say my website. Now that you've got this all made, it's time to pick out your music. And you have a few different options here. If you have music on your computer, you can use that. Keep in mind that if it's popular music, it is illegal for you to use that and you could get in big trouble. If you want to do things the right way, you can use a website like songfreedom.com. I'll talk about that in just 1 second. But if you want to, you can use the music that Animoto has on their website, and believe it or not, they've actually got some really good songs on here. So let's see, we can go to most popular songs and you can just listen to them here. That's not very good. Definitely not what I'm looking for. It's kind of a cool song, cool vibe. I don't know if it's really wedding-ish. Definitely not. But my point is that you will eventually find a song that works. It's going to be your go-to song, and it's going to create an emotional reaction when people see your pictures set to this music. Alright, so the song that I'm going to use is going to be Happy. Listen to this song real quick. You may hate it, whatever. I'm just using this to show you how it's done. And I'm going to click Add Song. And now I just hit Preview Video. And watch how easy this is. Now, when I first started using Animoto, creating the actual slideshow, once you were done and you hit Render, took a long time. It might have taken over an hour, and it was a painful hour because if you were done with everything else and you just had to get this slideshow done, it was easy to actually work with the software, but then waiting for it to finish was just painful. But now they have really upped their software and it is so quick now. You can actually see a preview in 30 seconds, which is pretty incredible. And so here is a very low res preview, and we can see if we like this. Now, I'm not really a big fan of doing this preview video thing. I usually skip this step and just go right to produce. But if you wanted to see a quick preview because you weren't sure how something was going to look, then you're welcome to do that. But I'm going to go ahead and click produce now. Now this is where it's going to take Animoto's software just a little bit to do its thing, and of course you can go grab a cup of coffee right now, and you can actually close the website too, and they will send you an email when it's done. I get contacted by brides all the time that are on the fence about wedding videography. They go, I don't really like wedding videos, but I kind of feel like I should have some video taken at my wedding. What do you think, Lee? And when I show them the video slideshows that I create that have video clips, a lot of the time they go, oh my gosh, this is perfect. That is enough video, that's all I want. I don't care about me being mic'd, I don't care about hours of footage, but just a little bit of video is enough for them to say, I don't feel like I need a wedding videographer anymore. And think about it this way, if they had money set aside for a wedding videographer, all of a sudden now they're not gonna have as much trouble booking you for more time, maybe booking your photo booth or booking an album that they didn't have money set aside for before. I know so many still photographers are kind of against videography. For some reason they're afraid of it, or they just say all I'm interested in is still work. And I think that's such a bad decision because it's so easy to click over with these new cameras and grab video clips and then flip back and shoot stills again. And then Animoto has made it so incredibly easy to include videos and stills right next to each other. Why not work just the littlest bit more and blow your clients away. You will book jobs that you wouldn't have been able to book. People will share your work because it's unique and different from everybody else who is unwilling to learn how to shoot video. And video really adds to the whole emotional element. Pictures by themselves are great, but if you can add a little video clip of somebody dancing or smiling or crying, all of a sudden it just seems that much more realistic. I truly believe that photography and video is becoming one job. And I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, but I think in 10, 20 years, video cameras and still cameras are going to be the exact same thing. And now's the time to jump on board. I know it's new and it's scary to some people, but it's really not difficult. If you understand lighting from a still photography standpoint, you will have no problem shooting video whatsoever. Okay guys, so the video just finished up and took less than 5 minutes, which is awesome. Really not a long time to wait at all for something like this. And at this point it's 360p, so it's not HD, but it's good enough for you to get a vibe of, you know, if everything's perfect and you're ready to upgrade it. So normally what I do in this situation is I would watch it all the way through. I would make sure that it was perfect, and if it wasn't perfect, I would go back, edit a little bit more, and if it is perfect, then you can click on Upgrade to HD. And here you can see upgrade is free because I have a pro account. A pro account gives you unlimited slideshows for 1 year, and you can make as many as you want and get HD. And if you want an MP4 or an ISO in 40p, this is what you're going to download if you want to create a hard copy DVD. So you're going to download the ISO file, and then using DVD burning software, you will burn it onto a DVD. Remember that DVDs are not full HD, and most people don't have Blu-ray players at this point, so you're probably not going to want to burn a Blu-ray. You're probably going to want to either give them a DVD or give them the digital high-res file here. So once I upgrade it, this is going to take a little while. You can see it's processing right now, and I'll get an email in maybe 30 minutes when this video is done, and at that point you can watch it in high-res on Animoto's website, and you can download the high-res file and do whatever you want with it. So if you wanted to burn it to Blu-ray, or you wanted to give that file to your clients, maybe on the wedding disc, sometimes I do that with the still images. I'll just put the video file on there. You can do that as well. So while this is producing, let me take you over to songfreedom.com, and I'll show you what you can do if you want to use popular music legally. Alright guys, this is Song Freedom, and funny enough, that's me with a strange facial expression talking a little bit about Song Freedom. But basically, this is the first website that allows you to buy sync licenses to current popular music. Everywhere else that you get licenses to music, it's either royalty-free music, so it's something that you've never heard before, or you actually don't get a sync license, which means you can't put it to a slideshow like an Animoto slideshow. So basically, at this point, this website is going to be your only option if you want popular music in your slideshows. Now here's the pricing for Song Freedom, and you'll probably notice right off the bat that it costs more for the music than it actually does for the slideshow software. The slideshow software is $250 a year, and for $600 you can get 50 licenses per year, which is pretty expensive, but for what you get, it's totally worth it. Basically what you're getting is the right to use 50 songs for 50 different projects for an unlimited amount of time. So you can create a slideshow, pay once for it, and then keep that slideshow online indefinitely. You're never going to get sued for it. You're going to know that you did the right thing and that you actually jumped through the necessary hoops to license music legally. You can pay $25 for one song, so if you're just getting started with wedding photography and maybe your clients have a particular song that they want, but you don't shoot 50 weddings a year, then just go pay per song. $25 per slideshow is really a very small price to pay in the long run, and if you can make a happy client that's going to tell their friends and family all about you, and they're so excited to share their wedding slideshow because you've used their favorite song, just go ahead and pay the 25 bucks. It's definitely worth it. If you shoot more, $600 a year for 50 licenses is going to save you a lot of money that way. But there's probably a lot of wedding photographers that don't actually shoot 50 weddings per year. So that's up to you. You'll just need to figure out if you want to do the package deal or an individual basis. Now, you'll find that when you're looking at the music, they definitely don't have every song here. The owner of Song Freedom is working as hard as he possibly can to get as many musicians as he can on board and record labels. But at this point, this is such a new thing that it's very difficult to find particular songs. But you'll notice, I mean, here we have One Republic, and you've definitely heard these songs before, and Leonard Skinner. So it's definitely not royalty-free music. It's definitely not cheap stuff, but they're not going to have every song you want every single time. So keep that in mind. Keep in mind that if you want music to play when your clients come to your website, the same exact rules apply. You cannot just go on iTunes and download a song and put that on your website. You can, but it's illegal and you could get in trouble for that. So if you want to do things the right way, pay the 25 bucks per song, and you'll be able to use that song indefinitely on your website and know that you did the right thing. Remember that we've said this throughout the entire DVD. Wedding photography is all about perceived value. If you want to charge high prices, then everything that you do to brand yourself has to be the highest quality. And one huge component of this is using popular current music. And if you can use songs that bring out an emotion in your clients, then you're going to book a lot more jobs that way. Alright, so the HD upgrade just finished, and we can watch the video now and it will play in HD. Obviously it's really small right here at the moment, and I can turn the music on and I can full screen it if I wanted to, but this is the finished product. Now once you've created this video and you like it, you need to share it with your client, right? And there's a few different ways that you can do this. I have decided simply to embed this video on my website, and the way I do that is by clicking on sharing, embed code, and then you can grab this code right here and copy it into an HTML web page. And I've created a little bit of code to make it look a little bit nicer than just a video floating by itself. But basically that's all I do. So this is the landing page that I send all of my clients to. And this is a very simple HTML table that I've built. If you don't know how to create one of these, you can easily teach yourself by learning some basic HTML code online, or paying a web designer 50 bucks and he could create this for you really, really quickly. But basically it's a simple page. People can click on the video and watch the slideshow. And while they're watching the slideshow, they will probably notice my logo here. They'll probably see my information with my website and my phone number and my email, so if they have any questions, they can contact me. But then you'll also notice here in the bottom left, click here to see every image. So if you click here, this is going to take you to my SmugMug page, and then you can see I've actually got a slideshow folder here. So these are all of my favorite shots from the wedding. And it's just that easy. I want my clients to have no questions about how everything works, and if they have friends and family that want to order prints, then I want them to be able to pick the picture that they want and click buy this print.
So guys, as you can see, it couldn't be easier to create these video slideshows. Animoto has done a great job about making things as streamlined as possible. You don't have to use Animoto by any means. If there's other software that you prefer, definitely stick with that. But you've got to create slideshows for every single event that you shoot. I guarantee it will book you far more weddings than any other type of advertising you could do.
So by now you've probably figured out that both Patrick and I like to make our businesses as simple as possible. When it comes to things like prints and albums, we don't really like doing them as much as some other photographers because we don't want to have to deal with that 6 months or a year down the road. The idea of somebody calling me whose wedding I shot a year or more before asking to make a 4x6 print is just a really scary thing to me. I would never have enough time to deal with something like that. but at the same time, I think it is really important that you share the pictures in some way that the family and friends are going to be able to see them. And in many cases, there is money to be made when it comes to making prints. For me, the best option has been smugmug.com. With every single wedding that I shoot, I can upload the high resolution images, and that's fantastic because you can get them printed at any size. You can sell the actual digital download directly from the website, so you can make money there as well. But the main reason is it's a full res backup. If you have a hard drive go down, you are always going to have those pictures saved on SmugMug's website. And so I feel like that's something very important to think about when you're thinking about archiving all of your wedding pictures. I've also found that after many of my weddings, the planners and the other vendors involved with the wedding come to me and ask for the pictures. And it's very time consuming having to put everything on a DVD or a thumb drive and mail them out to all these different people. But now that I have the full wedding on SmugMug, I can just email out links and say, hey, take whatever pictures you want, and it makes the whole process much simpler. So real quick, let's go to my computer. I'm going to show you some of the basics of SmugMug, and I'll teach you how you can get your pictures online quick so that you can get them in front of friends, families, and guests of these weddings. So this is smugmug.com, and when you first sign up, you can see you get a free trial here. If you want to skip the trial, you can see the pricing for everything. You're going to need the business plan, which is $300 per year or $35 per month. I would definitely suggest just going ahead and paying for the $300 per year because you do save a little bit of money here. And let's go ahead and log in, and I'll show you what the back end looks like. So now that I'm logged in, let me show you how you can set up your pictures so that they can easily be sold after a wedding. I'm going to go down here to business and then making money and then price lists and click manage. And if I want to create a new price list, I can hit create new, and we'll just call this test. And this is where you can actually choose who is going to make your prints for you. I've always used Bayphoto. I've heard great things about these other people as well, especially White House over here. But I'm just going to stick with Bayphoto for right now. And this is where you can type in a default profit. I have 400% over base price. Round up price to 99 cents. Basically, this is going to set the prices for you automatically, and then you can go in and change them manually after that. So I'm going to click create and choose products, and this is where it's going to come up with a list of everything that you could possibly offer. And if you want, you could add everything. I personally think that this can be a little bit overwhelming, so this might be a time that you want to go in and spend a little bit of time and actually choose different sizes and different types of prints that you're going to allow. For this, I'm just going to hit done for all of these, but you'll notice that there are tons of other things that are actually available. So I could offer metal prints, I could offer merchandise, I can offer cards, I can do downloads, and downloads are great because sometimes people don't care about actually getting a print and they just want to buy the picture and put it on Facebook. So you can actually allow people to pay to download the high-res version of the image, and you can choose. You want it to be the original size, you want it to be high-res, low-res, web size, and you can charge accordingly, which is pretty interesting. So just for the sake of this, I'm going to show you how you can make custom prices for individual items. So here, if you wanted to just do this quickly, you could put in some sort of percentage like 300% markup, 400% markup, and it's going to automatically make everything. I think that that's good for some situations, but for 4x6s, you probably want to have a much higher markup than you do on a much larger print. So you can see here, 4x6 print. The base price for a luster print is 38 cents. If I want to sell it for $3, then my profit will be $1.52. I can come in here and change this to whatever I want. If I wanted it to be $5, I could do that. It'll tell me my profit is $3.93. And so basically you can go down. I would suggest not having quite this many print sizes available just to simplify everything for your customers. So once you've created this price list, you can apply it to all of your weddings from here on out. So it'll take a few minutes for the very first time, but then you never have to do it again, which is really nice. And if you have different types of events, maybe you want to charge completely different prices per event. So maybe you want to charge more for prints for weddings than you do prints for a Halloween party. You could have different price lists and then apply those price lists to each individual event that you shoot. Okay, so when it's time to actually upload your very first wedding, you're going to click on Upload here and New Gallery. And this is where you can type in the gallery name. We'll call it Katie and Dan. And this is where you can choose a different category, and weddings is a category already. And once you set up these categories, all of the settings are going to be saved. So it's going to apply everything that you did for your last wedding to this one, which is really handy. Now, there are a lot of different options on the way that you can actually set up these events online, and you can create subcategories if you want to, and you can combine different folders. I'm not going to get into all of that for the sake of this video. I just want to keep this as simple as possible. But if you want to get really in depth here, you can learn all about subcategories as well. But I'm going to go ahead and just keep everything on default and hit save here. And this is where I can just grab pictures and drag them in here, and you can do thousands at a time and it will upload the pictures. And you can see I just did one really quick image there, and that's already done. And when you click I'm done uploading, it's going to create a little gallery here. And you can see this is not a wedding picture, it's just an image that I grabbed off of my desktop. But you're going to have thumbnails over here on the left and pictures over here on the right. So let's go ahead and click on a real wedding here, and I'll show you what this is going to look like. And you can see I'm actually logged in as Patrick right now because I wanted to show you how different mine looks in a second. But basically you can click on the pictures here, and then they're going to show up on the right. And then if you want to buy a print, you just click on buy and buy this photo. And then it's going to come up with all these options for you to be able to buy the prints, and everything's already marked up. And basically, your clients are going to be able to buy prints, have them shipped to their house, the money's going to be taken out, and you can just collect money at the end of every single month. So it keeps it super simple for you after your wedding because you're not having to deal with every single print order on your own. Now you can also see here that Patrick has added a watermark to the bottom of his pictures, and so if you want to do that, you can easily do that to every one of your pictures as well, so that if somebody actually does take one of the pictures and puts it online, you are still getting credit for that picture. Now you'll notice this is a pretty plain looking website. Everything's on black, and I think it looks fine, but it may not match the style of your actual website. So I want to show you what I did with my SmugMug page. I actually had somebody custom build me a SmugMug page to match the look of the web page that I send my clients to after a wedding, so that they can see the slideshow and then click over to see every image. And those pages really work together. They look very similar, and it looks like it was built at the exact same time. Okay, so this is what my website looks like after a wedding, and I send my client a slideshow, and they can click here and they can actually see the slideshow from Animoto. And while they're watching this, they're going to be able to see this box down here that says click here to see every image. So if you click this, it's going to take you to SmugMug, and you can see here that I have everything broken down into subcategories, so you can separate it a little bit easier if you have tons of pictures. I have reception, preparation, pose, ceremony, slideshow, and photo booth. And so let's just click on slideshow. These are all the pictures that actually show up in the slideshow. And you can see the way that I have mine built here, it actually looks very similar to my slideshow page. So I've got the gray background with the white border here. When you click on an image, they show up over here on the right. So I had this web design team custom build my SmugMug page to match my other website, so that it was one seamless thing. When you were clicking through my website, through the slideshow onto SmugMug, it just seemed a little bit more professional, and it looks like this was custom built. So if you're interested in having your SmugMug website custom built, head over to fastlinemedia.com. These guys did a fantastic job for me, and they can basically make your SmugMug page look however you want it to look. So it can match your normal photography website, and I think it makes the entire thing just appear much more professional.
So basically, guys, that's it. It's just that simple. And if you want to keep your business as easygoing and as simple as both Patrick and I do, or if you want to take your business to the next level and really focus on printmaking and ramping up the quality and the prices there, I think that there's a place for SmugMug in both styles of business, and I think you can make it work for you.
By now, you've probably learned that both Lee and I, we just give the digital files to our clients. We find that it's easier on our end, and also our clients really appreciate it. And basically, there's several different ways that you can deliver these digital files to your clients. The first and easiest way might just be to do a digital download. If you can put the entire wedding on your server, maybe through FTP, and then you can have your clients download it, they can get it really quickly. They may have it in 1 or 2 days. And as you've heard in the other chapter where we talked to a CPA, in South Carolina, this actually allows us to not have to take sales tax. It's really easy. We can put all these files online. They can be digitally downloaded, and it just makes the transaction a little bit easier. So definitely consider digital download if you want to get your files to your clients really quickly and you don't want to deal with boxes or packaging or mailing things out. If you do decide to send your files electronically to your clients, there are some downsides to this process. And the first one is the file sizes are just going to be huge. Most of the weddings that I shoot are between 4 gigs. Some of them even go up to 12 gigs. And in many cases, your clients are just simply not going to be able to download files this size because maybe they have a bad internet connection, or it's going to take 4, 5, 6 hours to download and something's going to be interrupted during that time. So if you decide to send your files electronically, be aware you may have to deal with a lot of emails and communication, and that never looks that professional. The second thing is a lot of clients, they like to receive a tangible product. So if you deliver something electronically, it's the easiest, most convenient way to get a file, but it kind of comes off as being a little cheap. So I have stayed away from sending files electronically, at least full weddings, simply because of this fact. I like my clients to go out to the mail and get a really nice box and to have something in their hands and to be really excited that they're about to see their wedding images for the very first time. Now, if you want to send your products tangibly to your clients, there's really 2 different ways that I like to do it. The first one that I've done for years and years and years was I used to put all of the images on a DVD. And this was really convenient. Everyone could get the files, they could put it on all their computers, they could download relatively quickly. And you could put labels on the front and just package it in a way that it was really impressive. People got this hard copy and then they could take it out and it just looked substantial. And I used to use that for many years. That was my go-to way to deliver the files. So for years, I used to buy these DVD boxes from dnlphoto.com. So in these boxes, they just have these leather-bound DVD boxes, and you can put an image in the front. They have another image inside, and then you can put your DVD right there. And again, I thought this presentation was great. They look really classy. You do have to print 2 images out, which was one reason that I went away from this method, because it does take some time. But when you print out everything and you get it labeled and you put the disc in there, it looks really nice. And then they come in these convenient boxes that are simple to ship. And I've just found that my clients really like them. They could take them to their local store and have prints made, and it was the most simple thing I could think of in delivering files to my clients. DVDs are great because they're so cheap. I mean, you can buy a spindle of DVDs and each DVD is basically costing you like 10 cents. So they're really affordable, but the problem that I've found is most computers don't even come with disk drives anymore. So in a lot of cases, you might be shipping a product to your client that they can't actually load onto their computer. The other problem is I would have a lot of read problems. The disk might read fine in my main computer or even other computers that I test, but maybe 1 in 10 times I would have a client emailing me saying, hey, the disk is giving me an error or it doesn't load on my computer, and I would have to package everything up, make a second copy, mail that back out, and I just thought there has to be a better way to deliver these files. So after delivering DVDs to my clients for years, I decided I want to switch over and start doing USB drives. Every computer has a USB input. The USB drives, they actually download much quicker, and there's no way that they're going to get destroyed like a CD does. A CD a lot of times gets scratched and all of a sudden you have to order another one. So what I do now is I go out and I buy brushed aluminum USB drives, just something that looks really plain, really simple, but it still is metal, so it has sort of a classy look to it. I download my entire wedding onto that, and then I package them into these boxes that I get from pexagontech.com. Basically, it's a nice little leather-bound box that has my logo on it. And then when I open it up, I can put the USB drive right in there. So I found that this still looks really classy. It's actually smaller in size than the DVD boxes that I was using. And I know that the USB drive inside is not going to cause anybody any problems, and in most cases, they're super easy to copy. So if my clients want to make 5 extra copies, they can just quickly drag all the files onto their own USB drives, and it's a lot easier than dealing with DVDs. Now, there is one downside to using USB drives to deliver the final images to your clients, and that is the USB drives can be a little bit more expensive. They're gonna be a lot more expensive than a 10-cent DVD, but you know, depending on the drive that you buy, they may be $5, they may be $100. I mean, there's USB drives in all different genres and makes and different materials. So I like to go more towards the expensive side and build that into my package prices, because when they open up that package, I really want them to have a great reaction when they pull out a really substantial, nice USB drive. But in a lot of cases, you could just ship out on a $10 USB drive, and as long as it's not offensive looking, it's gonna work out perfectly. Now, if you want to start sending prints to your clients, you really have to find a nice box to package everything in. You're going to realize as a photographer, you're going to need several different boxes to pack everything up. And the first one you need to tackle is 4x6, 5x7, and probably 8x10 boxes. Now, I use these boxes that I've gotten from dnlphoto.com. They're just, I chose chocolate brown ones. I think these look really classy, and they put my logo right on there. But they look really nice. You can put, I don't know, maybe 20 to 50 images in here. And then if you put these in another package when you mail it out, it just looks really classy when they pull it out and they see your logo on there. So be aware that if you're going to go the print route, you do need to have boxes for those, because you don't want to mail your images in some flimsy cardboard or in no protective case at all. No matter which way you decide to deliver images to your clients, I think packaging and presentation are really important. And obviously there's a million different ways that you could do your own little personal take on this. I would recommend going to something like WPPI or some big convention to see all of the different manufacturers that come up with USB drives and boxes and cases, because there really are that many companies that make them. So I hope I've given you guys just a few things to consider when you start deciding how you want to send your images to your clients. Just remember that presentation is extremely important, and you don't want to skimp out on this. You really want to put your name behind your product, and when your clients get that package in the mail, you really want them to be excited.
So guys, that was it. That was basically our entire tutorial. That thing took 3 years to create, 2 years to film and edit. Basically, it's 8 years of knowledge condensed down into 12 or 14 hours of footage. And so I just want you guys to realize that nobody can watch a video and then go out and become a successful photographer in any genre. So don't think that just because you've watched this thing, you should become a millionaire overnight. That's not the way things work. But I guarantee that if you can take this knowledge that we've given you and actually go outside, take pictures, and apply it, you will become a very competent photographer in general. And when that time comes for you to shoot your first wedding, you're going to do a fantastic job.
Wedding photography has really opened up so many doors for me. I've met amazing people, I've traveled to amazing locations, I've been able to do things like start f-stoppers and get into video production. I would have never been able to do any of this if I had a 9-to-5 job or if I had become a doctor. And I'm so thankful for the opportunities that wedding photography has allowed me to have.
I know when I first got started in wedding photography, I basically had to figure everything out on my own. There were a few photographers that I got to assist, and I got to see the way that they did things, and that was a massive help. But overall, when it came to getting a business license and marketing and everything like that, it was complete trial and error for me. And obviously everything that we've taught you may not work for your business. You're going to have to figure some of that out as well. But hopefully this video has given you a huge jump start above everybody else that has to make these mistakes on their own.
Just remember, lighting is lighting. Taking a portrait is taking a portrait. So if you're shooting a fashion model, or you're shooting a bride, or maybe you're shooting a family pose picture, the same techniques go into taking a great photo in all of those genres. So hopefully what we've shared with you throughout this entire thing can not only make you a better wedding photographer, but it's just gonna make you a better photographer in general.
If you already have a wedding photography business, it's time to take that to the next level. You can either simplify your business like we have and give yourself a lot of free time to work on other projects, or you could take your wedding photography business to the next level and hire employees and start shooting with associates and start shooting over 100 weddings a year. You can decide what you want to do for your business to take it to the next level. So you have the tools now to jumpstart your business, even if you don't want it to be a full-time business. Now's the time for you to go out and get legal, get your business license, get your sales tax, do your taxes right, get all of that in order, buy the essential gear that you need, go out and find a photographer that you can assist, start a marketing plan, get your website together, and I guarantee you're going to be able to start shooting weddings professionally
much sooner than you ever thought you could.